Hey there, thank you for joining me again. Today we're exploring one of the most common struggles many of us face, anxiety and depression, and how nature can help us soften, soothe, and reconnect. This episode is about how spending time outdoors, even micro moments, creates measurable changes in the brain and the body that ease anxiety and lift mood. We're talking about science, we'll talk about the experience, we'll also touch briefly on how clinicians can use nature-based interventions in their work. And then I'll guide you through a grounding moment designed specifically to reduce worry. It's a pretty packed episode, so stick around. Welcome to The Nature of Mental Health, the podcast where we explore how time outdoors supports emotional well-being, resilience, and healing. I'm your host, Will Henry, clinical social worker, nature-informed therapist, and founder of Riverstone Mental Health Collective. Join me as we dive into practical tools, meaningful conversations, and inspiring stories that help us reconnect with the natural world and ourselves. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. There's a line I often think about. Nature doesn't hurry, yet everything gets done. When anxiety or depression take hold, our inner world feels like the opposite of that. Anxiety tells us, you're behind, something bad is coming, do more. And depression whispers, why bother? You're stuck. There's no point. But step outside, even briefly, and you are met with something different, something steady, something that doesn't demand anything of you. How do you connect the two, though? How does nature help relieve the anxiety and depression? Let's start by talking about the stress physiology of modern life. Most of us live in a world designed for overstimulation. Phones, emails, noise, constant micro-decisions. The nervous system absorbs it all. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze network, becomes overactive. Cortisol rises, muscle tension stays high, breathing becomes shallow, and the body forgets what safety feels like. Nature offers a physiological counterbalance. Nature activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest mode. Studies show that within minutes of stepping into a green space, your heart rate decreases, your blood pressure lowers, the vagus nerve activates, cortisol levels drop, and breathing becomes naturally slower and deeper. We're not doing anything. The environment does the regulating. This is called bottom-up regulation. Your body shifts its state first, and then your mind follows. For anxiety, that's powerful. It interrupts the feedback loop that keeps the anxiety cycling. The next question then is, how does nature affect mood? Depression narrows our internal world. It often reduces motivation, energy, and emotional range. Nature does the opposite. It widens. Research shows that even short exposures to natural settings increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with positive mood and executive functioning. It also boosts serotonin availability, increases dopamine through novelty, curiosity, and mild physical movement, and reduces rumination, the repetitive negative thinking that can keep depression stuck. One study found that a 90-minute walk in nature significantly decreased activity in the brain's subgenual prefrontal cortex, the region linked with depressive rumination. When people say, I feel lighter after being outside, that's not a metaphor, it's measurable. Another fascinating component is the attention restoration theory, created by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. Our brains use two forms of attention. Directed attention, the mental effort used for work, problem-solving, and resisting distractions, and soft fascination, the gentle, effortless attention we use when watching trees sway, water flow, fire crackle, or clouds move. Soft fascination restores the parts of the brain exhausted by modern life, and when directed attention is overused, we experience irritability, difficulty focusing, and mental fatigue, symptoms that often show up in both anxiety and depression. Nature replenishes that resource. This part of the episode is for the clinicians listening, therapists, social workers, counselors, and mental health professionals who want to integrate nature-based interventions into their work. If you're not a clinician, don't worry. Feel free to listen along. This can help you get a sense of how you might like to work or who you might like to work with. And you'll get a sense of how these concepts apply to your own emotional well-being. Afterward, we'll move into our practical skill and grounding moment. The first concept is eco-assisted behavioral activation. Many clinicians use behavioral activation for depression, encouraging clients to engage in meaningful, manageable activities that increase positive reinforcement in daily life. Eco-assisted behavioral activation simply means doing these activities outdoors. Why does this matter? Outdoor settings naturally increase dopamine and motivation. Movement outdoors tends to feel more approachable, and nature reduces cognitive load, making tasks feel less effortful. Clinically, this pairs beautifully with CBT, ACT, and DBT frameworks. What about nature-based exposure for anxiety? Exposure therapy is one of the most evidence-based tools for anxiety. Nature adds gentle, regulating support that can make exposure more accessible for clients who feel overwhelmed. There are two important forms here. Interoceptive exposure involves intentionally bringing on body sensations that clients fear, such as elevated heart rate or shortness of breath, so they can learn that these sensations aren't dangerous. Of course, you should make sure your clients are physically able to participate, more on informed consent later, but outdoors, interoceptive exposure can be done safely and gently. You can try things like walking up a slight incline to raise your heart rate, noticing breath changes in cooler air, feeling muscles activate during moderately paced walks, pausing to intentionally observe internal sensations like heartbeat, warmth, coolness, expansiveness, tension. Why does this help? Clients often feel less trapped and more resourced outdoors, making them more willing to try exposure tasks. The environment itself acts as a co-regulator. The other form is worry or thought exposure. Have clients intentionally bring up a worry while walking, and then practice shifting attention to sensory cues like the sounds of birds, wind, temperature, or maybe grounding landmarks, movement rhythm. This disrupts the worry loop by bringing in bottom-up regulation. Then there's the polyvagal theory in nature. Polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, describes how the vagus nerve shapes our sense of anxiety, connection, and threat. In simple terms, the body has three states. The ventral vagal state, where you feel safe and social, you're connected, grounded, and have flexible thinking. Nature often naturally evokes this: open views, gentle sounds, and soft fascination. Then there's the sympathetic state, or your fight-flight response. This includes anxiety, hypervigilance, restlessness. Outdoor movement can help discharge this energy. And then finally, there's the dorsal vagal state, or shutdown collapse mode, where you experience low energy, numbness, depression. Gentle sensory engagement in nature can bring micro moments of reactivation. Natural environments send safety cues to the nervous system: predictable rhythms, organic textures, soft auditory stimulation, and color palettes that signal calm. This helps clients shift into the ventral vagal states more easily. Remember, nature is wired into our DNA. Now that we have an understanding of the science, what are some practical walk and talk nature therapy considerations? If you plan to offer walk and talk nature sessions, a few clinical guidelines help keep things anchored and ethical. Draft a specific informed consent for nature therapy. Clarify confidentiality limits, unexpected encounters, weather considerations, and emergency procedures. Use predictable routes. Reduce cognitive load by creating familiarity and emotional safety. Engage in accessibility planning. Ensure terrain and pace match the client's comfort, ability, and physical capacity. Talk about boundaries. Clarify expectations about physical proximity, side-by-side posture, and focus during movement. Remind clients that walking may bring up emotions differently than sitting. This is normal and clinically useful. Nature therapy is not just therapy done outside. It's a modality that uses movement, environment, and relational pacing as therapeutic tools. If you want more information, consider the Center for Nature-Informed Therapy in Towson, Maryland, where I was certified. Amazing staff and real evidence-based knowledge and skill to take into your practice. Finally, nature-based therapy doesn't require wilderness. A quiet street, a tree outside a window, a patch of grass, a community garden. These are all therapeutic resources. If you plan to integrate these tools, you'll find nature becomes a co-therapist, grounding, regulating, widening perspective, and supporting neurobiological safety. I'll include links in the show notes so you can explore these concepts further. So now let's talk about a skill for increasing positive mood. This is called a mood shift micro walk. It's a short, repeatable skill you can use anytime depression feels heavy or anxiety is lingering. It has 3 parts. First, step outside for 5 minutes, or look out a window if you can't go outside. Research shows that 5 minutes is enough to shift mood, especially if you incorporate movement. Second, notice one neutral or pleasant sensation. Not a feel happy one, but notice something that is not distressing. Examples include the temperature on your skin, a color you enjoy, a texture under your feet, the sound of leaves or distant birds. This activates your brain's salience network, pulling attention towards something grounding instead of inward spiraling. Thirdly, engage in a positive micro-behavior. Choose one of the following: a half smile, straightening your posture, taking a slightly deeper breath, naming one thing that's okay in this moment, or gently increasing your walking pace for 20 seconds. These micro-interventions stimulate dopamine and shift the body out of stagnation. This skill is effective because it's small enough to feel doable, yet meaningful enough to create measurable emotional shift. It's the opposite of all or nothing thinking. Now let's practice a grounding moment for easing worry. Let's take a moment to settle. You can do this indoors or outdoors, wherever you feel safe. Find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders soften. Let the jaw release. Take a slow breath in through the nose and let it fall out gently. Now imagine stepping onto a familiar trail or sidewalk or backyard, a place that feels simple and safe. You're not trying to feel calm. You're just letting the environment meet you where you are. Notice one thing around you or in your mind's eye that is steady. A tree trunk, a stone, the horizon line, anything that isn't moving rapidly or demanding something from you. Let that steadiness anchor you. Now bring your attention to your breath. Not changing it, just noticing. Imagine your exhale flowing downward, like water trickling down a small stream. Let each exhale release a bit of tension from the body. Now bring to mind one worry that's been taking up space. Name it silently. Don't solve it. Don't wrestle with it. Just place it on the riverbank beside you. You can return to it later if you need to. But for now, let it sit there. Take one more slow breath. Feel the body grounded. Feel the mind slightly clearer. Feel the worry a little farther away. Not gone, just not gripping. When you're ready, gently come back. Nature isn't a cure-all, but it's one of the most accessible, research-backed tools we have for supporting anxiety and depression. Small moments, little shifts, repeated over time. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, share the episode, or leave a review. It helps others find the show. For clinicians or anyone interested, I've included a full list of references and links in the show notes so you can deepen your work or incorporate nature-informed approaches with your clients. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Until next time, may your mind move like a river, and may your moments outdoors bring you back to yourself. Thanks for listening to The Nature of Mental Health. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, and share the show. It helps others find their way to this community. For more resources, visit riverstonementalhealth.com. Until next time, notice the small spaces where nature meets your day. Stay curious, and may you find resilience in every season.